Next on Face the State, a contentious battle, one for the history books. The state Senate rejects Governor Malloy's controversial choice for Chief Justice of the Connecticut Supreme Court amid accusations of bigotry and homophobia. We'll talk with both sides, the leaders of the state Senate, President Pro Tem Martin Looney, and Republican Senate President Len Fasano. Also this Sunday, Republican candidate for governor Mark Loretti. Our flashback, former Connecticut NAACP leader Ben Andrews, who died last week. All straight ahead this Easter Sunday, April 1st, 2018.
From Eyewitness News, Connecticut's most watched local political program, this is Face the State.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Dennis House. We begin this Easter Sunday with the fallout over the rejection of Governor Malloy's choice to be the next Chief Justice of the Connecticut Supreme Court. And with us today, the leaders of the Senate. First, the Democrat Senate President Pro Tem Martin Looney and the Republican Senate President Len Fasano. Senators, thank you for being with us here today.
Good to be with you, Dennis.
Thank you for having us.
Senator Looney, I'll let you start this conversation off. Why do you think, in a nutshell, why was this vote defeated?
Well, I think it was a combination of factors. I think one in particular was the fact that Justice McDonald was so close to the governor. I think there were several factors. First, I think with the probably the extreme, most ideological wing of the Republican Party, the fact that he was gay was anathema to that group, and that applied some pressure to some. Secondly, I think because he was seen as an active Democrat during his career in Stanford, and then, of course, when he was in the state Senate, he was a high-profile Democrat as well. Third, I think he was seen as being very close to the governor, and then fourth, with the Republicans having achieved parity in the Senate and close to parity in the House, I think they were in a position to deny the governor his choice if they all held together as they did.
But the governor is saying that homophobia was one of the primary reasons that Andrew McDonald was voted down. Do you believe that?
I think the primary reason was more political, along the lines of what I just said. It may have been with some. I don't know the private motivations of people, but I think that. I know that Senator Fasano did his own research and came to his conclusion for reasons independent of what I think, what I just put out. But I think for many, I think that was the motivation behind it.
Senator Fasano?
So I think the reason why Andrew McDonald did not make Chief Justice is purely based upon his judicial record over the last 5 years. Andrew McDonald is on the Supreme Court, will remain on the Supreme Court. The question that was before us is whether or not he should be a Chief Justice. I look at it as being part of a team and a captain of the team. And when you have a captain of a team, you need to look at his philosophy, because the direction that he would take the Supreme Court is what is at stake. And if you look at his decisions, he doesn't view the limitations of the Supreme Court in the same view, at least I think. They review facts, which they shouldn't be doing. They have philosophies that they're pushing. That's not what I view are the paramount of the role of the Supreme Court, and in fact is outside the constitutional limits of the Supreme Court. And I would tell you, I think my colleagues looked at that issue and said, an activist type of role is not what we need at the Supreme Court, and I believe that's why they voted no.
Senator Looney, as you know, Senator Duff was on this program a few weeks ago, and he said that Republicans were anti-gay, and that is why they were against Andrew McDonald. After he said that, did you ever talk with him about, well, that's not right, or perhaps it is right in your judgment?
As I said earlier, I think it was a combination of factors. But I think to return to Senator Fasano's point, I think that the decisions that he refers to don't lead necessarily to the conclusion that he draws. And also the deans of the 3 law schools and a large number of legal scholars and faculty at the 3 law schools in the state, and also leading appellate practitioners, have reached a different conclusion, supported Justice McDonald's nomination. And I think that the key thing in terms of his perception of what's the appropriate rule of the judiciary was actually established while he was a legislator, when, as chairman of the Judiciary Committee in his first term as chair, he pushed for passage of a bill after the Supreme Court had decided to state the Courchain case, which basically said the court should have flexibility in interpreting statutes and looking to other sources for possibly variant interpretations of statutes apart from the plain language of the statute. And he was responsible for advocacy and passage of legislation that said if the plain language of the statute is clear and there is no ambiguity, the court should be bound to that. So I think that was a significant commitment to rein in judicial flexibility, and I think that really represents his view. Also, there was a case some years ago that where a state marshal serving papers got a huge windfall because of the value of the attachment in the case, and some were crying out, said that's improper, that somebody should get that kind of an award. And he said, well, that's what the statute says. It's up to the legislature to make that change. So I think he has been quite restrained in his view of the role of the judiciary.
Both parties were criticizing each other over the debate over Andrew McDonald. What's the relationship now between the Republicans in the Senate and Republicans and Democrats there? Can you get anything done together?
Absolutely. I mean, since that time, we've already had a meeting.
But you said you were deeply offended by what Senator Duff said.
Oh, and I still am deeply offended by what Senator Duff said. There's no basis for it. It was done to throw political dynamite into this whole argument. It was done for all the wrong reasons, and that's the reason why people get mad at government. When you resort to name calling, any sixth grader can call somebody a name. This is about the ability to interpret the law and have an intellectual argument, not a name calling argument. But as far as the relationship between the Republicans and Democrats in the Senate, Senator Looney and I have talked on the phone about other issues since then. We've met on budget issues. This is nothing that's deep-rooted. It was an argument. The vote is over. We need to move on to other state business that affects the everyday life of every citizen in the state of Connecticut. That's what's most important now.
As you know, Republicans are being blamed for McDonald's defeat, but is that fair when you look at the Democratic numbers? You hold the majority. If it was a tie vote, Nancy Wyman would come in and Andrew McDonald would be the justice. Did you fail in any way to get the Democrats together to coalesce as a bloc and vote for Andrew McDonald, including Gail
think
Schlossberg?
So. We obviously know. And Senator Schlossberg believed that she had reasons to recuse.
Did you try to persuade her otherwise?
If it had been, no, I did not. She had announced it before I had a chance to speak with her, and obviously in something like that, people have to make up their own judgment. I think it's improper to lobby with them on an issue of recusal. That's a matter of personal choice and personal judgment. So whether or not I agreed with whatever reason she may have had, that was her choice to make. So even if it had been a party line vote, it would have been 18-17 in those circumstances. But overall, if you look at it in the House, I believe it was 69 Republicans voting no. In the Senate, it was 18. So there were 87 no votes and only one yes vote in the entire General Assembly among the Republicans. And among the Democrats, there were, I believe, about 74 and plus 16. There were about 90 yes votes and 6 no votes overall. So it was overwhelmingly a partisan vote.
Do you agree that the Democrats gave it to you?
I don't think they gave it to us. I think that...
Well, they gave you the power by not having the numbers to get him nominated.
Yes, I think by virtue of Gail Schlossberg not voting, certainly the numbers shifted over to our side. But I don't think anybody looked at this in my caucus as this is a Republican or a Democratic vote. It was a vote for someone who wanted to become from Justice to Chief Justice, and as a role as the Chief Justice, does he have the best interest of the Supreme Court now and in the future? And to Senator Looney's point, there was that statute that then Senator McDonald pushed, which is the plain meaning of the words, and that the court should not infer something else. But when you look at his opinion on the death penalty, he did just the opposite. He said, I know what the plain meaning says, that the death penalty should remain retroactive, but he went with the majority and said, I'm going to ignore that. So he put the rule out there as senator and violated it as justice, and that's what really was a point of discussion in my caucus relative to his role as Chief Justice.
Gentlemen, I want to draw your attention to the screen right behind you, and let's take a look at the Supreme Court as it existed a short time ago. Obviously, Chase Rogers has retired. That's the seat that's open right now. Andrew McDonald voted down the other day. Who on the High Court is acceptable to you as the next Chief Justice, should the governor choose one of them? And he doesn't have to. He could choose another judge.
I'm not going to get into that. Obviously, I think that is the governor's choice. My own pick would be Judge Brian Fisher, who donated a kidney to me last year and is a saint in my book. But obviously, I'm confident in whatever choice the governor might make.
Is anyone unacceptable?
I wouldn't get into that at this point. I would want to hear what the governor's view is.
Senator Pisano?
I'd love to pick because I do have somebody that I think could do a great job, but I'm afraid my pick may wreck that person's chances of being appointed because I'm not sure Governor Malloy views me as a very friendly face nowadays. Look, I think Justice Robinson would make a great Chief Justice, first African American justice for our state. I don't agree with a lot of his decisions, I might add. Not a lot, but some of his decisions, I have read them, but the logic and the wish and the words that he chooses when he writes these decisions are really unique and profound.
Would you vote to confirm him?
Yes, I would vote to confirm him.
Is there anyone in the High Court who is unacceptable to you as the next Chief Justice?
I think that I think Justice Palmer had a very difficult time but he's getting of the age for retirement, only 3 years. So based upon years, that wouldn't make any sense. So that probably wouldn't make any sense to bring before us. After that, I haven't done any further reading with respect to other decisions.
As you know, the Democrats have been raising money off the decision by the Senate this past week. Do you think it's going to be a big campaign issue in the fall?
I think there are so many issues that will be huge this fall. There'll be a mix of issues. I think obviously the impact of federal policy on Connecticut is going to be an issue in terms of the federal tax bill and its change, reducing the state and local tax deduction to $10,000. That's going to have a big impact in Connecticut. There'll be a host of other issues.
Do you see this as a big issue in the fall? I mean,
No.
It's going to be used against Republicans.
No, look, people at home care about jobs, the economy, and taxes. That's what the main focus is. This stuff, they don't even know who the Chief Justice is now, or acting Chief Justice now. They care about their home, they care about their cars, they care about their family, they care about their jobs, they care about having a paycheck come in once a week. That's what they care about in Connecticut. This is really inside baseball for the most part. There'll be the activists who go out there and say the words that Bob Duff used, which are just irreprehensible, to say those words that are against folks by labeling them. People reject that type of labeling. They reject that type of name calling. But this is going to be about the economy, the focus on the state, and how we're going to move the state forward.
After the first vote, which was 2020, I believe, correct?
The committee vote.
Yeah, committee vote. Governor Malloy knew that this could be problematic, that this was far from a sure thing. Did you ever advise him as to the way to go on this?
No, I did not. I thought that Justice McDonald deserved an up or down vote in both chambers, and I still think that he's eminently qualified. And I think the way this issue may move forward in the fall, I think, will be an issue of whether or not he was treated with fundamental fairness. But I think the governor is right to nominate him. In my own view, that he was the best qualified person to be nominated to be Chief Justice in the 38 years that I've been in the legislature.
Did the governor reach out to any Republican senators to ask them to vote for McDonald?
Not that I'm aware of, but Senator Looney and I and the governor sat down the Monday before the vote, and I let Senator Looney and Governor Malloy know where I believe the vote was on Monday so that they could do whatever they felt was best interest at the time. So
The governor was furious.
Yes, he was upset with me. I called the governor and I called Marty and told him what the vote was. Didn't sit down with him. I called him and told him what the vote was on the Monday before the Tuesday, and he was upset.
Why do you think the governor didn't have any political capital to get this done among the senators? You said that a lot of them voted him because perhaps they don't like him.
Well, I don't see it necessarily as a matter of political capital. I think it was the nature of the nomination itself and the high profile of the nomination. But obviously, the governor is going to be in office only for 9 more months, and I think that probably played into the minds of some.
Senators Looney and Fasano, we thank you so much for being on Face the State today to discuss this.
Thank you
See
very
you for the
much.
next battle. When we come back, we will talk with Republican candidate for governor Mark Loretti, and we welcome you to watch past editions of Face the State on our website, WFSB.com, also on YouTube.